And hi everyone, welcome to Life Edge, because life just doesn't have to be mediocre. I'm Rick Zanotti, and I'm joined by my good friend, Dr. Susan Nash. Hi Susan, how are you?
Good, it's great to be here. We have a great guest who's a great example of how to pivot during a pandemic.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And joining us in-house is Harold Muliati. He's running the video switcher and mixer. Here we go.
This show is sponsored by Relate Corporation. Digital learning development, media development, corporate video, management consulting, and more. Visit us at www.relate.com. Thanks.
And joining us today in that center position of power, as we like to call it, we've got Amy Noack. Susan, would you like to do the intro?
Absolutely. So, Amy Noack, you are a very great example of a person who has had a lot of interests and has managed to make them all work out really well. And your story is an incredible inspiration. So I'd like to start at the beginning. So you started out as a geologist, and how did you get interested in geology?
I got interested in geology because I was in high school, and I was taking earth science, portion of high school science, and I just really liked rocks, and I saw like there's some Italian scientists that went on volcanoes, and they took their rock picks and they were digging through lava and bringing up lava, and I just thought, oh my gosh, this is really cool science. I didn't know anything about geology, and I took my first geology course in high school, and in my sophomore year of high school, my junior year of high school, and then I TA'd my senior year of high school, and I took a trip to the Grand Canyon with my high school geology instructor, who also led for Western Michigan University a Parks and Monuments class, and then a Grand Canyon field trip. And so I river rafted down the Grand Canyon, lived on the Grand Canyon for 9 days. And I knew I absolutely fell in love with the science in the geology. And that's how I went straight into college, knowing exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't know it was petroleum for a while, but I knew it was stratigraphy.
That's interesting, because I spent about 10 days in the north rim of the Grand Canyon for it was actually intro to field course, but we had it made such an impression on me. I can still talk about the formations. You probably can too. It was just an amazing experience to do that.
It really is. I mean, there's just so much. I mean, obviously there's just so much geologic history there, but it's quite, it's very interesting. Sorry about that, dropped my phone. But it's very, it's just the nature and the peacefulness of it is just, unlike anywhere else. And it was a really great time to get in touch with, with the science physically.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is really interesting. And then after you graduated with your bachelor's degree in geology, you went on for your master's. Where did you study?
I stayed on at Western Michigan University. So in my undergraduate, I learned about the petroleum industry. And actually, we had a Department of Energy grant looking at Niagaran or Silurian Niagaran reefs in the Michigan Basin. And it was of high interest to me, and the technology in oil and gas was just so phenomenal. Like the software programs and the technology merged with the science. I was completely hooked on going into petroleum because of that marriage, and then also not even knowing that the business aspect of being in the petroleum business, which I learned later. But yeah, I went straight on for my master's. I actually blasted through my bachelor's and my master's in a combined under 5 years.
Wow. Now, so that's in Kalamazoo? Is that where?
Yes. Yep. Kalamazoo,
Oh my God.
Michigan.
So you've probably gone to their massive core repository and worked with Dr. Hamilton and all those cores?
Yeah, actually, I actually was one of the students that moved the cores over from the East Campus, which they were stored down in an old mortuary, and we moved those into the new Michigan Basin, what we call, I think it's still called McGree, the Michigan Geological Repository for Research and Education. And we were some of the first grad students to be able to work in that building. So it was a wonderful privilege. Every time I go back to Kalamazoo, I visit Dr. Harrison and the team up at WMU. So it's very near and dear to my heart that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful facility. It's massive. It's a shelf after shelf of cores.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Now, I also was.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was also reading in your profile that you were a bodybuilder. You've owned gyms, so that's your other interest.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so fitness kind of saved me from a low point in my life, and when I realized what confidence it gave me and what sort of discipline it gave me, I decided to actually go a step further and get into natural bodybuilding, and I got my natural and I got my professional card for 2 different organizations, so I compete as a professional bodybuilder, and currently right now our shows have been pushed back to the fall, but that passion led me to opening or becoming a personal trainer. Actually, the day one that I was actually laid off oil and gas 2016, day one of that layoff, I took my severance papers, I signed them, and I went straight to my personal trainer, and I asked him, how do I become a personal trainer? And I started working from day one, shadowing who I still think is, one of the best trainers around Houston. And I learned how not only to train, but how to develop and run a business. And then from there, I thought, I've got this opportunity and the resources to start my own gym. Let's try it. So
that's great.
I went and I opened a facility. So
as a competitive bodybuilder, that takes a lot of work. How many hours do you practice per day?
I wake up at about 5 or 6 a.m. every day, and I get about 45 minutes in of cardio. And then I take a break at lunch. It's kind of nice working from home right now, except, with gyms being closed, it's kind of is not not the best. But I'll train myself at home during lunchtime. And do my weight training during lunchtime, and in the evenings I sometimes get a walk in or so. But I fit it into my schedule. I have basically every half hour of my day planned out, and it always gives me something to wake up to and something to work towards every day. That's
great. And I like that how you also said you do the natural bodybuilding, because there's a lot of not very natural bodybuilding going on out there. So that's good. It's also a lot healthier, less injuries, and all the other good stuff.
That's so true.
And I have nothing against anybody else that chooses another path, but it's just my decision, and I really like the natural bodybuilding type of world, and it's more challenging too. And so I like the challenge because I've done so much over the past 6 years of building my own physique, confidence, everything. There's just everything that goes into it is a lot of work, and it's all worth it. It all pays off because you know that you've worked for every single ounce of everything you've achieved.
Yeah, it's funny. I used to, when I was growing up, the guy who was big, I'll age myself, the guy who was big was Steve Reeves, who was a natural bodybuilder back then. This is back in the 50s, 60s. And he played all the Hercules movies and all sorts of stuff like that. But he also won all the major championships back then. And I was reading something the other day about how he trained, which was interesting. He didn't do fast curls and he didn't do heavy weights. What he did was medium weights very, very slowly. He would do like 10 or 30, like 10 reps or 30 reps, but extremely slowly. So it's constantly in that range of motion, making the muscles bigger and holding it. I started doing that. I go, it really works. It pumps you much faster than if you just go really quick, which pumps you big but doesn't keep it there. It was just sort of interesting.
Yeah, there's like a variety of training techniques, and they all have a place and purpose.
Yep. That's fun. Susan?
That's wonderful. Yeah. So, I mean, I've never been too much in bodybuilding, but I did swim competitively for years and years. And so it's like what I like about all of those things that it's just the mental discipline. And then later I switched over to tennis, and just the idea that you can set goals for yourself and achieve them. It's just so applicable to the rest of one's life. And I see that in your other parts of life too, Amy, in the terms that I'm just fascinated by how you pivoted during this pandemic and used a piece of equipment that's used in oil and gas and in on-site, usually in mud logging, for helping people be safe. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I got into scientific instrument sales because I was working for a great company, which I, continue to work with as well too, Chemostrat. And, but I decided that I wanted to venture outside of oil and gas and expand my horizons. And I noted that, the instruments that we're using in Chemostrat, such as FTIR, XRF, ICP, any of those instruments, they're not just specific to identifying elemental or doing elemental analysis or rock analysis. They're used in a variety of industries. And a big one was gas chromatography. As geoscientists, we use GC all the time to look at separation of gas. Well, chromatography is just awesome because it just takes a mixture of something and it basically splits it out, all the components out of it. So the company I work for is very well known for liquid chromatography, but they also have gas chromatography instruments as well too. And so I'm learning a lot about these instruments. But one of the things is that, we use GC, or at least in the oil field, to separate out various components of the gases that are coming out of wells, and also to analyze produced oils and gases. That's the GC is actually used for other applications, such as looking at hand sanitizers. So a lot of the hand sanitizer manufacturers right now are purchasing GC units, of course, to check for purity and compounds in the hand sanitizers.
That's so interesting. So a hand sanitizer isn't just alcohol. What goes into it? Why would it be useful to have the GC, the gas chromatograph?
And it's made up of a variety of compounds, and there's standards to which that the compounds, basically that the actual hand sanitizer needs to be made up of to be considered, to be considered, what do you call it? As a disinfectant, antibacterial, or anything. So yeah. And I'll be honest, I don't really know the details of the chemical makeup of hand sanitizer. But that's what these manufacturers do, and we're able to provide the instruments for them to do the analysis that they need.
So basically, it's for quality assurance and also to reformulate if they need to.
Yes. Yep.
Well, that makes sense because a lot of, like you had mentioned earlier, that quite a few distillers went from making just alcohol for consumption to alcohol for consumption, like ethanol, or for use in hand sanitizer. I know that there are at least 2 in Oklahoma that have done that.
Yeah, there's actually, you can go online and they're searchable for who's doing that, and some of the larger distributors are probably have their own in-house chemists, whereas some of them are probably outsourcing some of their chemistry to local labs. And it's kind of all over the board there. So some of the local labs are picking up business because the distilleries are making the hand sanitizers. But depending on, how big the company is, will depend on if they have the actual instruments in-house or not.
And I guess I could use that also for the disinfectant that they use in like the electrostatic sprayers and things like that as well.
Yeah. There's all sorts of analysis available for, and I don't even know all the different disinfectant sprays and everything that everybody's using out there. So we haven't really seen, they're using some of the disinfectant sprays, of course, out here in Northern California, of course. But we haven't really opened our economy up. So, everybody's still staying very socially distanced, using a lot of hand sanitizer, washing a lot of hands. You see some of the spray sanitizer being used, but really, we don't really have that much open. Maybe on shopping carts and stuff, but it's, it will probably grow. It will most likely grow as things start to open. But right now, it's kind of interesting because I see it everywhere else. But here, it's very, very much in shelter mode still.
Yeah, I'm in Oklahoma, and we're supposedly open. Well, it's phase 2. And so it means that some things are limitedly open. It also means that people are, I don't know, like what should I say? Some people are like going a little bit crazy, but most people aren't. Most people, like, usually on Memorial Day weekend, there are parks filled with soccer and baseball and things. And there was nothing of that. But the feed and seed stores and all of the nurseries are just crowded with people, and it's like, I don't know. I think we need some consistent guidelines, but I think that for at least what I'm seeing in terms of the deep cleaning, that's happening at night in like the restaurants and anything that's open. They close early and they do deep cleaning with the electrostatic cleaners.
Interesting how they're doing all that now.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll work, but so far it doesn't seem to be working too well. They said the cases are creeping back up. So, I don't know. It's just discouraging. What can we say?
Yeah.
But I think it's great that using the equipment.
You know what? You notice cases are always creeping up, even though they say they flattened the curve over a month ago. And they can't really, the cases are going back up because they're testing more people, and most people already seem to have had it and didn't even know it. And so it's really hard to say. There's a lot of media pushing that the numbers are this high when in reality they're not that high. And if you look at it in, let's do some, I hate hearing it's the science. They know nothing about science. They're just doing political BS. But aside from that, you've got the number of cases nationwide. I think I read like 0.007%, and that's a death rate, 0.007%, not even that much. And in some areas is nothing, and in others it's been so teeny. And what some doctors are saying, which are, by the way, getting censored all over the internet for talking, is that these are doctors. These are like over 5,000 doctors have been complaining about getting cut off. But a lot of doctors are saying, this is less than the flu, a lot less than the flu. So, and by the way, there's two flus running. That you got influenza A and B running at the same time. So nobody really knows what it is. The tests just say you have some sort of respiratory illness, but they don't know what it is because they can't, quote unquote, identify COVID by itself. So, it's kind of like going to Vegas and you throw the dice down and what happens. You don't know what the reality is. And so whether numbers go up or not, yeah, they may go up, but does that mean anything? Not really, not yet. Nobody's proving anything. So,
well, anyway. I don't know though. I think, obviously whether or not the all the descriptions and everything are correct. Like I talked to a guy today who's lost his father and then he got very ill from it. His father went into the hospital for a urinary tract infection. He was 94 and he came back.
But there's your comorbidity. There you go.
Poor guy.
But everybody's got a... Yeah.
But at any rate, what I want to really think about every day is that we have changed as a society and as a world, and the consequences are we were way up here. I always think about this in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We're like close to self-actualization. Suddenly, boom, we're down on survival, and the people who are pivoting well are doing what Amy's doing. It's like, okay, thinking about where there's real need, and then thinking about how their equipment can be repurposed. And then also that applies to the person too. Repurposing yourself to fit the new world, whether or not it's whatever it is.
But see, I don't think there is a new world. That's where the manipulation happens. The media is all in lockstep of it's going to change. The world will never be the same. How many pandemics have we had in the world? Thousands. And, this is not the first one. It's probably not going to be the last one. This was a very mild one at best. So I don't buy that the world has changed. We've been artificially told it's been changed. So as you can tell, I'm not the true believer on this. And there's a lot of manipulation. The media manipulates everything, and that's the problem. That's just what I see. And it doesn't matter. I'm not talking politics. I'm just saying that you're being manipulated. Because when you hyper-focus on every death that happens every day anyway, now people are afraid of deaths that would happen anyway. Because everyone, according to the doctors out there, and there's been a lot of them, they say everybody who's died has comorbidities, one or two. And so as a result, it may trigger the comorbidity. But these are people who are very old, who already are at risk. They probably would go from something else. So again, there's a lot of manipulation going on. And it's a shame. But normally, you never heard 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, actually, that in Italy, 70,000 people died from the same thing that happened this year. 3 years ago, nobody even mentioned it because they didn't call it a pandemic. They died of natural causes from being very, very old. And Italy has and New York, same thing. They got a lot of old people and they have a lot of density in terms of how they live. And so more people die in those environments. Are the numbers higher than any other year? Not really.
Okay, I don't agree with that at all.
Okay.
Because, and here's why. Okay, here's why. And I don't agree with it because you can look at the numbers in Ecuador, for example, of people who died last year compared to the people that died this year. And so if you put all those other comorbidities and everything, looks like, and just say they're just mislabeling it, you still have a spike of 20 or 30,000 people. And the same in Manaus, Brazil, and some of these other places.
But that could happen every 3, 4, 5 years. That's what I'm saying. That's what a lot of the doctors are saying. Statistically, it's not correct. And the stats are they change every other day. So it's hard to say what's real, what isn't. I'm just saying, yeah, people are dying and it's not good, but people die anyway, and it's not necessarily more or less. Right now it's less than normal, at least in the US.
That sounds like Boris Johnson before he got it, and then potentially Bolsonaro. But anyway, I don't want to get political.
Yeah, no.
But at any rate, no, because I mean, yeah, there is a social construction of reality, and I totally go with that.
Yeah.
But then one thing that we don't have to socially construct, we know that the price of oil has crashed. We know that whatever the factors are, that they have changed. And so what I really like about what Amy's done, and sorry to get this all this, like, go down this path, but it's just like you've pivoted so many ways, and it's like very inspiring.
Yeah, and it's smart too, because you're looking at an opportunity that's a great one right now, and it's an interesting use of the tech and how you guys are adapting. Did the company you work with do this beforehand?
Yeah, they're very diverse across various industries. So yes, they have been involved with some of these companies. Of course, as different markets evolve, is how we kind of evolve as a sales team, and we focus on different areas too. So as industries grow, we're going to dive into them, just like the cannabis industry that's growing, and we have analyzers for hemp. And,
interesting.
And so we have, scientific instruments are great. Spectroscopy, it can be used for multiple purposes, and that's what that was some big recognition for me, was that if I can get involved in an industry that can touch multiple markets, multiple industries, I'm gonna basically I can see my career being more prolonged, more stable, and it's more interesting for me as well too. My customers are anywhere from biopharma to big electronic companies, to small independent labs, to government labs, to universities, various departments. So it's just across all disciplines. But as soon as, different markets pick up, that gives us an opportunity to showcase some of our instruments to those markets, and basically, focus on selling more that specific instrument line a little bit harder, because of the applications, the immediate application needed for it. So that's, it's just recognizing market changes and going out there and selling to the market.
That's great. It's a great use of, it's really good. Well, we are out of time. It goes fast. Amy, we're so glad you could join us and share some of what you're doing. Much success in what you're doing, and keep up the bodybuilding, and good luck on the competitions. That's fun too.
Thank you so much. It was great talking with you. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, our pleasure. And if people want to get a hold of you, we'll put do you have a link below, Harold?
I guess I did not, but I can definitely share my email with you.
Okay.
I don't know what the best way is, but
do you have a LinkedIn account? If LinkedIn is probably,
I do. Yeah,
maybe that's a better
LinkedIn,
one.
Yeah, you can find me as on LinkedIn. Always find me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Amy Noack, AMYNOACK. I'm the only Amy Noack rocking a mohawk, so you'll be able to find me.
Well, that's cool. It's always safer on LinkedIn. That's why we figured have them reach you there. So that's great. All right. Well, have a good one, and good luck in the future, and we will see you soon. And Susan, till next week.
Thank you, Amy. Well, yeah, this is great. Well, thank you, Amy. Really appreciate your being on the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the invitation again. You guys have a great day.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.
We'll see you next week.